All right, the digital lady has stated that we are in fact recording. So, on that note, it is official. Welcome to a newer. Shoot, gotta edit this out.
And go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Movie Minds podcast. It is I, Joe, and here is Brad. Say hello, Brad.
Hello, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing okay. To be completely honest, I am still quite obviously recovering from this cold flu thing that's been going around. So my voice might not be as strong. I might be fading out a little bit towards the end of this, so you'll have to help me out and carry it. Your voice sounds a little better, but other than that, I'm feeling pretty good. Tonight, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to have a conversation about a particular director, and hopefully, we'll do things like this in the future, and that's, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Ari Aster. And this was initially begun based upon whatever that was, based upon you suggesting that we review Beau is Afraid. And this is something that actually one of our coworkers had suggested to me, or maybe both of us, I think last school year, and I decided to check that out. And I wasn't quite as familiar with Ari Aster. I had seen Hereditary, and I know he did Midsummer. And I remember you said you saw Beau was Afraid, and you had a lot of thoughts, and you mentioned something about just the way he framed his shots or cinematography, and you seemed very, very interested in talking about that movie. So I was like, well, I found it to be a very interesting and challenging. So I kind of wanted to make it more of a discussion of the
Mhm.
man's work and your impressions, and I kind of want to see where you're coming from a little bit as well. And that'll be the start, and then you tell me kind of what made you inspired to talk about Beau is Afraid and maybe the director in general. So take it away, Brad.
All right. Thank you very much. First of all, that's a cool shirt. What is that? Are
Oh,
you a captain?
this yes, this was a gift. This is DS9 Star Trek hoodie, and I believe Amanda has another one, so we've got matching ones. This was a gift, so yeah, get some Star Trek memorabilia. You know, DS9, good show, underrated. Watch it if you haven't.
What are you waiting for, people? Carry out your orders.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about so we're talking about Ari Aster, and I watched Beau is Afraid. Is it Beau is Afraid of Everything? I think it is. Beau is Afraid
I
of
think it
Everything.
is just Beau is Afraid.
He's very afraid. Anyway, he's very afraid. So I watched it, and I'd seen, as you mentioned, I had already seen Hereditary. I'd seen Midsummer. I know he has one or two other ones I have not seen. And then I saw Bill was Afraid. When I began to watch the movie, I had no idea it was an Ari Aster film. Um,
Oh,
it looked a little interesting. I had no idea. I was like, okay, I'll take a chance on this. And I got most of the way through. It's a long movie, by the way. Um, and I think I watched it in two sittings. I had to stop it and come back to it. It was towards the end. There was a certain shot, and I'm like, "Whoa, that looks the shot." I'm like, "That looks like Ari Aster." It just reminded me of Hereditary, Midsummer, The Woman. It's it's a random shot of the mother like staring up and yelling at her son. I'm like that, you know. And sure enough, I watched the credits roll, and it's Ari Aster, and I'm like, um, and it's something about director, like good directors, good, like you can tell, you could see a shot, you can see the way a scene is laid out. Different things will tip you off, like what you're looking at sometimes. So that gave it away. As far as the movie, since we're not talking about that movie in particular, that one was it was hard to know what to do with for me. Like how to you know how to define it, or what am I supposed to do with this kind of thing. I got to the end of it, I'm gonna be honest with you, and then this is why I was like, I had a lot of thoughts at the time uh about that, because I got to the end of it and I was just like, huh? Like, what am I supposed to feel? Like, what's the message here? It kind of left me um kind of an empty feeling, which I guess is the point. And it is like, is this a horror movie? Is this a comedy? Is this like a psychological introspection? Because it's all in there. And there's some parts in the movie, and maybe we'll get into this with his other films in general. There's the parts of the movie that are just beautifully shot. There's some parts of the movie that are creative. I really like. There's some things in the movie I really really like about it. And then there's some things I'm like, this. It just it's disturbing. Now I know it's meant to be. So it's Ari Aster. You're you're meant to be disturbed by this. His genre is horror. He's a fan of horror, and he's showing you something horrific overall. That's what, the Beau is afraid. So why is he afraid? And then you're analyzing this man's fear. And one of the problems with that film, in my opinion, was it built up for the audience, like it had a lot of emotional cachet is the way I thought of it. Like you were invested. There was things to hold on to with Beau, with his loss, with his journey. I mean, you invested a lot of time by the time you get to this end of this odyssey of Beau. And then he there it just left me hanging. Like I said, again, it left me with an emptiness and a kind of despair about everything. I also didn't like, and I know this was done on purpose, but there were scenes in there where again there was, through the script, through the plot, through what's his interaction with other characters, where you begin to you really empathize with him, you sympathize with him, and it's an emotional buildup, and then it's like a fart joke type, not a literal fart joke, but it's like, psych, this is a farce. This is all a farce. This is all a joke. It's a dark joke, and I know that's what he's doing, but it can be arresting. It can be disturbing. That's the way I thought of it. Like, like, oh, shock you, and there's some merit to that sometimes. But overall, I didn't like the overall feeling of the film, because it was a lot of that. It was a lot. It felt abusive, and I might go back to that again, because when I talk about Midsummer and Hereditary, I felt like I was abused. Like I was abused by the director a little bit. And I know that's what he wants to do. Like, you walk away from it, you feel like beat up a little bit. And horror movies can do that. Like, you're not just scared, but like, oh my gosh, I'm traumatized or something like this. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I think it makes sense. I think that what you're saying is he's kind of a really effective director at really getting you to tap into the emotions that he wants to come across. That's, I think, what a great director, great artist typically does. That's something he does very, very effectively for, I think, a number of reasons. You described the film as arresting, and I was actually thinking as I was watching it, this is an all-out assault on all my senses,
Mhm.
constantly. And I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball, because uh, I something happened with this movie that doesn't happen to me very often. And to be quite honest, I was really struggling to get through it, and I didn't make it through the movie. I probably stopped watching it. Oh, I was determined to get through the movie, because like I'm like I like so many things about this on one level, but it is emotionally just affecting me on other levels. And I mean, like, if the film is trying to create an atmosphere of anxiety, it's doing it. One of bleak despair, it's doing it. And um, there there is like an emotional connection. Obviously, it's kind of relatable in a lot of ways. But yet, just some of the things that were coming up for Beau's conflict, the issues with his mother, like there are just so many upsetting things, and then all the little things in the world he's afraid of. Now,
Mhm.
it was just so much all the time and effectively done that it was exhausting, though. It was
Yeah.
exhausting, and it unsettled me, and upset me, on a number of levels. And so I think I got about like half an hour in, I stopped it. I said, I'm going to go back. Then I think I got up to about 40 minutes. I'm like, all right. Like I got to the bathtub thing. All right, with the guy in the tub. I'm like, all right, well, I need to take a break again. Then I think I got to the point where he got hit by the ambulance, and then he gets taken away to the couple that's clearly something's going on with them, and they're going to do something. And that's about as where I stopped. I'll tell you the exact moment where I stopped, where I said, I just can't do this. And as a film critic, as somebody I consider myself a film critic, I try to go through things and give them the best chance and appreciate the art. I really do. But at the same time, if a movie does cause me like mental harm, I think, or emotional harm, and I think it's just not for my own well-being. I felt bad. I felt very conflicted about this, but I had to stop because literally every time the three sittings I had trying to get through it, I couldn't do it. I couldn't. And the scene was he's sitting in the garden, which by the way, speaking of your point about a shot, it's a beautiful shot where
Oh
he's
yeah.
sitting in the chair and he's talking to I guess his mother's new husband or boyfriend. And yeah, he's saying like, where were you, Bo? Like, we've been
Yeah,
waiting
yeah.
for you. It's been days. Like, it was your mother's wish you should be here. Like, at least do that for. Like, what? What? And I'm just like, I felt because, and once again, great for Phoenix, like Jaquan Phoenix, just like he's Joaquin Phoenix. He's so emotive, and he does such an excellent job portraying that sadness and that innocence and that fear. Like it's once again, it's effective, but I felt so bad and so uncomfortable. In the background, you've got like the friend of the couple's son that's there who seems to have an issue doing stuff in the background. So you've got this really tragic scene and this absurd, ridiculous thing in the back. It's beautifully framed. Everything is well oriented and planned out, executed well. But at the same time, it was like almost done too well for the goal that I, as a viewer, couldn't get through it. And that's kind of one of the things I want to talk about to you with his films. Is it's an interesting idea that my wife and I talk about a lot because we actually kind of disagree about this, about kind of almost the responsibility of the artist and what they should put on film versus what they shouldn't. And if you're exploring an idea or an emotion, I kind of like I typically say that anything kind of goes, but so if some things are too disturbing or some things, are offensive to viewers on a way, like, is it a good thing? Is it how much is too much? And with this film, I'm like, I was thinking to myself as I was watching it, I apologize if I'm ranting, but I'm like, this is so great. And I'm thinking it's so excellent in so many ways atmospherically. When I was younger, I think I would have appreciated a film like this more. But like, do I need 3 hours of this nonstop assault? And at the same time, there was some bleak, dark humor in it. Like at one point, I actually forget the oh there was a point in the film though, amidst all this horror and terror, that I burst out laughing, like legitimately. Like I did think it was really funny. It's when he's remember this psychologist who, by the way, is a terrible psychologist, not very realistic. Just like says take these pills, but make sure you always drink them with water. And then
Yeah.
he does can't drink the water because everything's going wrong and his faucet's not working. He's freaking. Oh, what are the side effects? And if you've ever felt that way, you'll I can relate to it. Searching online, thinking what's going to happen to me, and then it's like, and then like they cut to this one site where it's remembering John, and I was like,
Yeah.
like that was pretty funny. Like, and I will say there is some of that super dark humor that's in there, but the problem is, for me at least, in comparison to his other two movies, because I watched Midsummer for the first time today because I felt so bad about not finishing the other film. I'm like, well, I felt so bad. I can't, like, I have to at least see the other two films fully to talk about his filmography. So I watched Midsummer today, but one difference I think is the other two films, he did very much the same thing I think he did with Bo. And you could tell me more since you finished the film, but at least with those other movies, there's time to rest. There's quiet moments between the horror,
Yeah.
for to explore the character. Whereas at least there's so much momentum, and maybe it is almost an exercise in excess of that for the sake of it, which I guess you can do, but do you need to do that for 3 hours? I couldn't make it through 45 minutes. And I kind of like the weird, disturbing stuff, but maybe I'm just like getting more sensitive. I don't know. But yeah, that was my plot twist for the episode, Brad. I was gonna
Okay.
be like, I I could not get through the movie. Got too depressed. I got too upset. I was just like, I can't do this. So
Mhm.
take that and run with it, buddy.
Well, it's funny you say that because I told you it took I watched it in two sittings and I wasn't going to finish it.
Mhm.
Um because like I forget how far I got. I got a little after where you stopped and I stopped it. And I was like, this is nuts. And then I was, the next night and I wasn't going to watch. I I kind of didn't feel like it because I didn't feel like getting like kicked in my, you know, lungs or something by this. It was, and
Kick
but
straight
my
in the heart, man. Right in the
yeah,
heart.
and my wife was like, "Are we gonna finish that?" I was like, "You want to finish that?" She's like, "Well, yeah, we already like." It was like it's like, well, you go to the buffet, you already paid for it. Like, gotta eat, I don't know. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll finish it. So I finished it. And so I can completely empathize with that. And the funny thing is as well is like there was a point when I was watching Hereditary. I stopped. I physically stood up and said, "That's it," and turned it off.
Was it the head?
The little girl.
It was the head.
And I said,
Yeah.
"That's it. I don't want any part to do with this." And I actually got my wife's like, "Calm down." Like I was like, "No." I was like, "No, you don't do that." What you were saying about responsibility. I was like, "No, there's things you don't do." And I think I'm also yeah, I am sensitive because I have little girls. I'm a father, and this little girl has like special needs, and it was like completely egregious. It was evil. And I know it's supposed to be evil. Like I'm watching a horror movie about like a demon and stuff like that. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it anymore. And then I did go back and I guess the curiosity or whatever it was, I did finish Hereditary. But I will
Oh.
never I don't want to watch Hereditary again.
Hmm. Well, yeah, well, maybe we'll go through it. I don't know how organized it'll be. I will say, well, since you talked about Hereditary, that was the only one of his that I had seen when you brought up Bo, and so I did like Hereditary. I I know I have a slightly different perspective on it, but I do agree. I think that's the most horrific part of the movie is the pure brutality of the headless, the head of the girl, right? And how it kind of comes from, the brother's kind of lack of care and whatnot. The And so I thought that that was it. This is where I kind of find myself in conflict with my own argument. Okay, where like on one hand I'm like this is brutality, and I could see how some audience members like yourself would be very upset by it. I was also intrigued by it because I thought, wow, this is capturing the bleakness, the sadness, the despair of something that could literally happen. I mean, without the supernatural, sadly, this thing could happen, and the effect it would have on the family, because that's something that I think he does really well. All three of these movies is that that's one thing I did like about Beau is Afraid in a way, is that from everything I watched, every single thing that he experiences is possible, that I saw in it's all released, realistic, believable. Some of it's out there, like the guy on the ceiling, the people on the street getting into the part. Like it's ridiculous
Yeah.
that it's all happening at once constantly because he's constantly afraid of every possible thing because he's so fearful. But all of those individual things are based on a legitimate concern that someone may have. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, that's why it works. So I'm like, this is like just on the edge. And I'm like, huh, that's interesting. And it's kind of the same with his other films. Like with Hereditary, I think it's the one that's definitely the most supernatural and the one that like, kind of goes beyond like what you typically deal with day to day. But that effect on the family and how it tears them up and the worry about generations and mental illness and the guilt of the mother and like the brother, everybody. It was so well done. I think the family drama aspect and the what really was the best thing about them all trying to deal with it. So, and because of this horrible thing that happened, and if you had marketed it as a drama and kept that in, or even like not showed it quite as brutally and done the same thing, most of Hereditary, I was thinking, wow, for a good chunk of this movie, it's just a really sad, effective drama
Mhm.
about a thing that honestly could occur and how these family members would deal with it, how they might fall apart because of it. And then, of course, they gave it sort of a supernatural spin. But that was what worked the best about Hereditary. I have other thoughts about Hereditary. Because would you like me to go into that more, or do you want to
Yeah,
say
if you
something?
want. And like yeah,
Oh,
let me just say quickly, like because I said I don't really right now want to see Hereditary again.
sure.
I think it was very well done. Like it's so creepy, and some of the shots, I mean everything, like it's a
Ooh,
horror movie,
ooh,
like
Brad, the opening where it's a dollhouse,
it's a
looks like a
dollhouse,
dollhouse,
yeah.
but it's actually the house she makes. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh."
And I actually read a little bit about that. He went a little Kubrickian about the having the
Kubrickian.
set built and putting the camera in the wall and having moving shot. I mean, it was great. When I say I don't want to watch it, I don't want to watch it right now because it's like it's so much boom, 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 boom. Like, and the ending's disturbing. I mean, it's over the top. Um, and but anyway, that's what I mean. I'm not to say that it's not a very well done film. Like it's not, it's not poorly made is what I'm saying.
No, I agree with you, and that's kind of where it's an interesting conversation because from the 2.5 movies that I saw of his, I 100% agree with you. I think he's an exceptional filmmaker. I think all three of these films are very, very well made. Excuse me. But yeah, the thing about and it's just kind of the question of they're all well-made films, but none of them are movies that I'm gonna rush back to watch. Like they're very effective and they'll sit with you, and that is, I think, one type of effective filmmaking. Some movies, the direction leaves such an impact that you watch it once and like, wow, I remember that movie 10 years later, but you don't necessarily want to watch it again. I think about 12 Years a Slave is a great example talking about the brutality of slavery.
I never
Like
saw them.
oh, it was quite a
Yeah.
good movie, a very well done movie. They go into a lot of the brutality of what happened. I don't really want to watch that movie again, but it's a well done movie versus like something I love like RoboCop, which I think is a well done movie, but I would like to watch it over and over again. I think there are different ways to be effective, and Ari Aster, I don't know if necessarily is somebody I want to. Yeah, I'm gonna totally watch do a triple feature of his movies. Like, no, no,
No.
I think
Yeah.
no one would come to that movie night. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe talk about an endurance test. Um, geez, you'll need like some self care afterwards, big time. Uh, no, the thing about Hereditary, um, I I I really liked Hereditary for all the things you said. So much detail, so much effective atmosphere. I think the thing I like the most about Hereditary, um, in comparison to the other two, is that for me it was a little more traditional of like your typical horror movie. It kind of came out of like The Conjuring, and that it felt more. It was
Yeah.
darker colors, and we're dealing with the some of the ghostly and demonic. It was a little more in the realm of what you typically see. So I'm not saying that anything against it, but I was more used to that type of disturbing, I guess. However, as effective as it was as a drama, there was a point where Hereditary kind of lost me. And like I originally, when I like, I'd say about, I don't know, 2/3 of the movie, I'm like, this is one of the best horror movies I've ever seen. A+ movie, 5 out of 5 minds, whatever. I loved it. And then she met that lady that was like, "Oh yeah, you want to learn about like witchcraft? Here's my book. You can buy it at Barnes and Noble. Check this out." And that's where it lost. That's where it began to lose me. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like it's just a witchcraft coven thing." And it's not the fact like sure, witch is cool, coven, yeah, that's fine. It wasn't that bad. That in so it was the fact that it's kind of like the nefarious thing again. Oh, the Secret Order of Witches has their fully Penguin Random House edition in Bam and Barnes and Noble
Yeah.
for your. Oh, please, it's got like you can just pick it up like Quetty, the Secret Society. Oh, that was so corny. And then all
I
the
agree.
witch
Yeah.
stuff was so corny. And then I know that you said the ending was disturbing. It kind of was, but like I said, once it was like, oh man, there's the twist, and he's the new inheritor of the Lovecraftian. I was like, no, I was so cheesy, so
It
over the
was.
top, and I was like, no, I was
That's
like, it
yeah,
started
yeah. I not as much just it was disturbing. It was over the top.
so much.
It was like canned ham. Like it was like, all right, here we go. And it was creepy right before that. He's
It
in that
was,
room, she's up in the ceiling. Then there's a guy in the naked guy
yeah,
in the
yeah.
clothes.
And they're like in the little like the attic or the treehouse. It's just a bunch of people. Oh, yeah, and we're gonna do this little ceremony, and you're the new prince of the night, or what? I'm like, what? Like this is the best you guys come up with. Your massive. It just was so
Yeah.
it was so silly, and it was also very predictable. Once the she met the random lady that had the plot points with the random like mass distributed witch book, I'm like, okay, that this is what this is. I know it was very predictable, very standard, and then it was just cheesy.
Yeah.
So but it was still well made within that. But it was like the first 2/3 of the movie were like such amazing stuff, and then it was kind of like then it just kind of became, oh, a little safer. So maybe the bar was set too high for me, but yeah, Hereditary just takes a little turn for me because of that lady in her book. That
No,
why do they always want to
I
sell
remember
their
saying
books
the
better?
same thing. I'm like, it's the book. Yeah, I don't know, and yeah, it was a little predictable there because at the beginning, I mean, it's funny because at the beginning, like, I didn't know much about it. My brother had watched it on vacation. He's like, you got to, this one is like horrific. You got to see this. I'm like, well, what's going on? Because just based on like, I guess you don't judge a book by its cover. I didn't know anything about Ari Aster. Based on the cover, I was like, oh, it's just another one of these like, whatever, these run of the mill horror movies. And at the beginning, like it builds tension. Like you said, the dollhouses, the bleakness, and I'm on edge. And then there's the part with the head, and it's disturbing. But then it does get a little cliche, and it's over the top, like really over the top. And so you didn't see the end of Bo. Bo is afraid. So
Can't even imagine.
that's what I'm talking about. Like, there's a part after that. If you ever feel like watching it, there's a part after where you got off the train. There's a section there that's like, I'm like, is it bracketed off from the rest of the movie that I think is actually like beautifully done. It's like a character play within a play type thing going on, and there's some sweetness to it. There's some beauty to it, and I'm like, okay, and then the PTSD guy comes back in and everything comes rushing back in. And then you get to the end, he gets to his mother's house. I won't go into because I don't even know what to tell you. It's gets to his mother's house. And again, he builds the emotional cachet. And then it's like, oh, like someone sat on a whoopee cushion. Like, and and then it's like disturbing again and then weird. And then at the end, I was like, that like kind of a despair feeling or an empty feeling at the end of it, but it was difficult to get through. Um, so I did watch it twice. I probably wouldn't have finished it if it wasn't for my wife. Hereditary, I did turn it off at the one part, but then I finished it. I agree with you about that. Um, and then Midsummer was different. Um,
It was.
so it's bright. I like that about it. Very bright, and in the motif, the way that it was used there with the Nordic paganism, the different with the festivals there. That was the one. So I've seen three of his films. That's the one I think, most likely to watch again or want to watch again is Midsummer. I think so.
I'm right there with you. No, I was thinking today, like, I felt so bad about the bow thing. I was like, man, like Midsummer, this one was hyped up, but Midsummer was one, like I said, as I've gotten a little older, I'm like, I used to love all the dark, artsy, weird films, and it's like it's tougher sometimes now. I'm not as resilient, I guess, as I used to be. And I heard Midsummer was like disturbing and it's got like the weird, like psychedelic things. I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like I want to stay away from it. I just got this vibe. But I'm like, you know what? No, I got the day off today. I'm gonna do it. And I loved Midsummer. I thought Midsummer was beautiful. It was yes, the fact that it was so bright was nice. I feel like it's not as oppressive in that way as Hereditary or Bo, but it is in another way because it's like offset with it's in the summer, the midsummer ceremony,
Mm,
and so at that, I guess at that elevation in that area of the geography in Sweden, that time of year, it's mostly
yeah.
sunny. I guess that's what they're going for. So that's kind of a little off. It's bright the whole time, and everybody seems cheerful in this little cult, but that it's still kind of unsettling in an off kilter way. I think a lot of his trademark stuff is there from what I've seen, but I found the story probably the most intriguing. I felt probably the most invested in the main character of the films. Like, I guess the mother, Toni Collette, who is a fantastic
Mhm.
actress in Hereditary. Um, you know, I did care about her plight and her family, but it was difficult because there was so much sad stuff there. And Bo, I liked Bo. I felt bad for Bo, but it was like hard to watch because of everything he was going through. It was like too too connected to him, I guess, too empathetic. And this one, I really liked the fact that Florence Pugh is this girl who he's really good at creating characters and situations that just seem so believable and realistic. Like everything set up with that the opening scene where she gets the text or the email from her sister about having suicidal thoughts, and then she tries to call her parents, and then she calls her boyfriend, and we get the subtle little pockets about their relationship, how he's kind of distant, not as interested. The dialogue was so relievable. She calls her friend to get, like, to check in. Am I asking for too much? Oh, he should be there to support you. Oh, but I never see him cry. Well, maybe you're because you're the one being vulnerable, opening up, all that stuff. So like all that stuff was so natural, so believable, and like it was, and that's why it hits so hard because it just seems like once again stuff that could happen, like
Yeah.
it could happen to somebody. And yeah, just out there, and some of the shots and the way, like those aerial shots where the choreographed dancing and how he had everything set up for the table to look like their language and whatever ritual, like the just thinking of the time and the coordination for that, like just visually, like how we talk about Kurosawa or Kubrick, where you take a frame, any frame in the movie, and it's like a painting.
Mhm.
I think that's like these
Oh,
movies.
yeah.
And I think Midsummer was just like literally like this might be this could be the most beautiful horror movie I've ever seen. It's just beautiful, and nice looking, genuinely.
Yeah, it is. It's bright. It's beautiful colors used. Um, and the sunny ambiance, and you're there, and it's constantly sunny. It's the middle of summer, and there's like this foreboding. There's this looming in the midst of these festivities. Um, it really does a good job of building that up. And like you said, it's not so like it's not so abusive to the like you can come
Oppressive.
down. Yeah, it's not oppressive. Like I and also it's also creepy in a subtle way. Like
You're right. It's kind of like what this community does. They seem so bright and nice and peaceful. The setting almost lulls you into this false sense of security. It looks so pretty here. It's paradise, but something's off because it's like too nice,
mm,
you know? And that I just think that, oh man, so much about the presentation of this movie and the way it deals with the characters. And I feel like if you want to analyze Midsummer on multiple levels, like just yeah, I just think it's really great. Oh, and that's one thing I wanted to point out. Maybe another reason why I liked it more than the other two, certainly more than Bo, was because the one thing that Bo does is that constant, like oppressive, like assault, bam, bad thing happened. It's like too much. And with Midsummer, it's like okay, there's a creepy, disturbing thing. There's a difficult thing that happens, a violent thing or an unsettling thing, and then we pull back and we have another character moment. We sit in this beautiful, serene moment. It kind of can be relaxing. Like I'm a little sick, so I'll be honest. I was watching on the couch. I'm like, oh, that was pretty scary. That's pretty disturbing. Oh, this is nice. Maybe I'll chill. Maybe I'll fall asleep. Like I didn't fall asleep, but I was
mm,
like, I felt oddly relaxed at points watching Midsummer, so I was able to get through it enough to deal with some of the weird stuff. But yeah, I thought that was great. I mean, I will say that based upon the 3 that I've seen, or the one I have seen, it's definitely my favorite because I felt like I, um, I feel like it was working on multiple levels. The cinematography was the best I saw, and, I definitely wanna watch it again. Um, but yeah, I will wanna give Bo another watch if I can.
yeah. I mean, if you want to, like it's you, if you ever watch it, I'd like to talk about certain things. I won't tell you anything, but
Well,
um,
you mentioned how I guess I don't know. You don't have. I don't want you to spoil it, but based upon the other two, the endings are kind of bleak. They're almost over the top bleak. And I'll tell you what, though, the it sounds like maybe Bo's ending might be hard to swallow. And I thought Hereditary's ending was bleak, but it was also kind of over the top and silly. Um, Midsummer, it's kind of bleak, it's kind of tragic, but it's also kind of satisfying. It makes sense for the character, like when and I thought there, that's something I think Ari Aster, if I could sum up maybe what I think he's best at is what a lot of artists are best at, especially, guys like this that delve into the dark stuff, is he's trying to show that there can be real beauty in these horrific things. and not just looking at like the beautiful settings or how you frame your shots, that's there, but literally he tries to like some of the things that they do to these people. I mean, like he does it in with the practical effects and how they're splayed about to make them look uh pleasing or interesting to look at in a weird way. He's try you know what I mean? He's trying to make it visually appealing even though it's horrible, which is I think like this attempt that he's going for with a lot of his stuff. Like the best example I can think of though is maybe it's easier to stomach literally is that final shot. um I think of the movie is one of my favorites because remember, spoilers for people who are listening, but she kind of essentially is brought in to help them continue to grow their community so they won't do inbreeding, like, basically.
Yeah.
And the incest stuff. And so they they make her the May Queen. She's gonna have soon high position, but she's also been drugged up. She's been messed with psychologically. So she's like kind of almost broken. But and she's all dressed in that literal like dress. It looks like one of those big Southern Belle ones, but it's covered in this collage of beautiful flowers of various vibrant colors. And she's got that crown of flowers. But she's almost buried within it. She's almost buried in like they've enclosed her with it. Like she can't leave, right? And they give her the choice to make the decision about basically, that final sacrifice, killing her boyfriend. Um, but and they cut to that slow pan in where she decides to let them go, and she seems horrified by what she's done as they're burning in the little temple thing. But then the very subtle shift as she starts to
Yeah.
smile, like she's given in and she's accepted it because you know it's been built up. She lost her family, and this guy has also, so she's found a family, and this guy has not been good to her really the whole movie. And it's actually, I think, done kind of subtly for the most part and believably. And I'm like, it kind of makes sense it went there. Like they set it up so well in the script with all these little beats. And I really thought that as far as bleak endings go, I thought that resolved very well within the story they set up. I was like, wow, that is a dark but satisfying ending. So you go, girl, I guess. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, I think when I was thinking about that, because it's been when did Midsummer come out?
2019. I was surprised it was
2019.
that long ago.
So I think I saw it 2019 or 2020, and I haven't seen it since. Um, which I would watch it again. I just haven't had the chance, the occasion to watch it again. But I remember watching it. I had seen some interviews with people before that, people that loved it, people that hated it for a bunch of different reasons. So I was kind of intrigued by that. And one thing it did show, just to look at it from like a I don't know, anthropological point of view, a cultural point of view, because
Mhm,
what we're dealing with is like is kind of like pseudo, like I said, pagan cult in the Nordic
mhm.
countries. Which a lot of this stuff, he does his research. Ari Aster does research on things. So a lot of this is based in things that would happen, or could happen, or different things, as far as different ceremonies they would do with the sowing and reaping ceremonies. It's almost like th- she and her boyfriend, this group, they go back to the old world and they become enmeshed in fate. If you know anything about like the Nordic religions, it's very much like the fates. Your fate is sealed, which is why like the Vikings. If you want to go off on that, that's why the Vikings were so like fearless. Um, One, because they were probably drunk, but also or things like that. But it was like I'm if I'm gonna die, it's already been determined. If I'm gonna live, there's nothing you can do about it. The gods have already decided. And so like they
Fair
get
enough.
involved in that. And so I think like you say at the end, it was like that's his fate. Now my fate is to be this. And it's all circular. I'm all part of the circle now. The bear has to go in. The bear is the great the
Ooh,
one you fear, the enemy,
that
and
was a fake out. That was a good fake out, by the way, because the scene where they're like they're talking about, oh, like make sure you don't puncture the intestine. They're cutting up the bear, and
Mhm.
they move him off the table, and then they move him onto the table. I'm like, oh no, they're gonna take him apart, and then they didn't do that. But I was like, oh man, that was a
Yeah.
fake out right there.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what it was. It was like succumbing to fate. So of the three movies I've seen, like you said, you're left with a little bit of bleakness and despair. Um, one, a little more than a little bit in some cases, but that one had a logic to it, I guess. There was some kind of satisfaction to it, like you said, and it was like, visually beautiful. Even it's horrific, and then um yeah, it makes sense more than I think the other ones. Like I said, with Hereditary, it's so over the top, and like I don't.
Goofy.
Yeah, it's goofy. At the end of it, I guess it is. Yeah, I guess I could say it was goofy. And then Bo, it was all it's funny because I would go back to Bo was Afraid again. It was like I stopped watching. Okay, let's watch it. It's so long, and it's this odyssey. Obviously, it's very Freudian, and this man's afraid. Well, obviously, he has mother issues, and now he has like issues with his genitalia and sexuality, issues with society, um, issues with trust, and then he's being lied to. Very much the I can't remember that comp. It was like a mother complex, and there's a
Oedipus
scene.
complex.
Yeah, it's almost an Oedipus thing going on there, but there's a scene toward the end there again where it's like, oh my gosh, this is sad. I felt sad, and
Well, go ahead.
it reminded me of something in my own life because there's a certain song that plays, and I was like, oh, it's a sad song. It's a good song, great song, sad song. And I was like, oh man. And then it was like you hear the record scratch. Oh, it was like what? And then even up to the end, I was like, oh. And then I was like, this looks like an Ari Aster film. Like, oh, yep, there's something in the attic. If you ever watch it, I won't tell you what it is. And then it's like, okay, it's still not done. And then at the end, I'm like, well, this. At the end, I was like, this is very interesting. What's going on right now? And then it ends, question mark, kinda. And I was like, oh, I don't know. What am I supposed to, again, I already said everything, but like, what am I supposed to feel? Like, how am I? And I kind of didn't by the end of it. I'm like, I'm supposed to root for Bo, but he's so pathetic. And I'm worn out with this guy. So I don't know. But that's the different ones. Definitely of the three, Midsummer is my favorite. And I think it's the tightest package of the three. I think it's the most interesting of the three overall, or like um coherent. I think coherent throughout. Front to back. Uh, but yeah. Anyway, that was some thoughts about the end of Midsummer, and
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said about Midsummer. I guess, well, I guess I want to ask you. Well, I mean, clearly, it could be another one of those things where, like with anything, you kind of, I think that Bo is afraid, and he brought up some points about, well, he is afraid. What is he afraid of? A lot of the issues he has, like when you're mentioning all these things you were saying, I'm like, well, sounds like issues that to an extent all of us or many of us have a lot of those issues. It's a lot of, it takes the various aspects of the human condition. It's like Bo's got them all at once, to the point where it's like ridiculous, or his perception of it is, it's literally an exploration of all those things at once. Which it's another example of, like, it's an interesting idea, but does it work as a film? I don't know. I really hate saying, "Oh man, art should follow rules. Art should be limited." Like, especially if it's that surreal. You know what I mean? Like, but I guess when I think about something like what he's doing with Bo is Afraid, or even as other, but with that film specifically, that film, if he slowed it down, and I wonder if he could have just, instead of making it an odyssey, like, just to make it an endurance, this endurance test, like, instead of that, make it a short film, or just a nice 90-minute movie. I know that his movies are long, but it's like his longest film, Bo is Afraid, is 3 hours, and it's like it's his most surreal, and it's not. It's almost like it follows a plot structure, I guess, but it's just so constantly interjected with things. Whereas the other two films, they follow more standard plots, and they take their time. You've got slow motion.
yeah.
You've got, we sit on the scenery for a minute. It's a little more deliberate. They feel long. They probably could have been trimmed, I guess, but that at least added to the atmosphere, and it didn't interfere with the plot. I'm just like thinking, like, the 45 minutes I watched, it was like constant. I'm like, if
Yeah.
I can't do 3 hours of this, and I was thinking
Well,
like entertainment value, like if it's entertainment, I don't think it would work. But maybe that wasn't his goal. Art should it be entertainment? That's a whole nother discussion.
it's funny. It's funny you say it should be a short film. I should have mentioned this at the beginning because then I after I watched it, I looked up some things about it. I read about it, and so he originally made uh, "Beau is Afraid" was originally a short that he made in school with a different actor, and the original main character was this black guy that passed away. They mentioned him in the credits at the end, which makes more sense of some of the things that happen, makes it a little more sense of some of the things that happen in Beau is Afraid, the longer version, like his interaction with the police officer who just seems to want to shoot
Oh,
him is
yeah, I
originally,
thought like,
yeah, it's originally
that makes more sense.
a black guy. But the original premise of the short was like he lives in an apartment in the city and someone took his keys. He has to leave and someone may have his keys. He can't lock his door. So if you remember that part. And so it was based on that, the fear of like, should I go? And someone could get in my apartment. Like it's just fear people have that live in a big city. Um, and so
Ooh,
what happened, from what I understand, is that around the time with COVID and everything, he had a bunch of time to work with it, and he just built up this big film from this short. So it was originally a short film.
I that does make sense because I could see them if they focused on one aspect of it, and then like, oh, he feels really paranoid and afraid, all his guilt about his mom. Like, I'm not saying it had to be a short. I don't know if like I've never seen a film that tries to be a like surreal, gut punching horror ish film like this. It's very different. It's very unique, but also with that long of a runtime. Like I
Yeah.
just think that I think maybe some people can only handle so much. I kind of want to watch it again. You know what I may have mentioned this to you before. You know what Beau is Afraid kind of reminded me of? The uncomfortable sensation. There have been some films that made me feel uncomfortable, but I still liked them, like Under the Skin or Enemy. But this one, this I felt like I was constantly getting vibes similar to what I got when I watched Mother. Did you ever see
Yeah,
Aronofsky's
I
Mother?
did see that. Yeah.
Uh, it it reminded me of that. It's like not quite it's realistic, but it's like an allegory, but it's not quite right. So it feels unsettling the whole time, like
Yeah.
you're
It's
in this
off.
like dream state. And
Yeah.
it's very the whole movie's off, and that makes you feel uncomfortable. And not to get off topic, but like I remember the visual of like the crack in the wall of the plaster. Eventually it looks like there's a wound, like it's bleeding, like, oh, like what's going on? Who are we in the mind of some the whole time? And like the saddest part for me is like the whole when I know it's a lot of it is a biblical allegory, but the scene where all the people are taking the baby, which is I guess baby Jesus, and then they're all like literally trying to grab the baby, and then the baby, its head gets cracked against the wall, the death. And I just was like, oh, like I got through Mother. I did get through Mother, but it wasn't like even that wasn't the whole movie. That was like one part towards the end of the movie as things ramped up. So Beau is Afraid is like the last act of Mother, but the whole movie.
It's just the yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always getting ramped up. I'm like, calm down. Just
It's
let me breathe it in so I can think about it.
yeah, it keeps it. You're right. And it's like four. It's actually like four shorter films to kind of
Wait,
taped together.
for Brad, for a second, I thought you say, actually, Joe, there's an actual director's cut that's 4 hours long.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't watch the whole.
No.
It is tough. It is like there's a short film at the beginning about the keys, and that kind of makes sense. I mean, I'm because there's some funny parts too in the beginning. There's some funny parts sprinkled throughout in between this insane, like fast paced, like, the world, this guy's psyche's trying to kill him, or he can't get to, do you ever have a dream where like, I need to get to this thing? I can't, like, I need to go do this thing, but I can't, I keep getting stopped. It's like this.
Brad, this movie is like every conceivable possible nightmare scenario all at once.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is, like I said, on some level, I find that funny. That's the ridiculousness, the absurdity. Like, so yeah, man. Like that's why it bothered me. I'm like, oh, this is too close to reality, too many ways. Um, but yeah, well, here's the question because I know it's getting late. Unless you have any final thoughts, that's cool. All right, Brad. Let me pose the question to you, based upon our discussion. Do we like Ari Aster?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I was wondering what you were gonna say because do I like I just yes or no answer, do I like Ari Aster? No.
Really? Okay. Explain.
Uh n-
Explain.
I yeah, I like the way I like things I like the way he does certain things. I really do. Like I said, that shot, I'm like, that looks like when you can pick the shot, like it jumped in because you know, I like the way he does certain things. Um I don't know. I maybe I don't have enough of a maybe it's because I just saw Beau was Afraid. Maybe I need to see another thing. But I'm like, what
You
else?
need him to
What are
red
you gonna give me? How are you gonna abuse me next time?
basically.
I don't know.
All right. Well, here, I'll tell you that I think I do like Ari Aster. As a filmmaker, I think we can agree he's very effective at doing what he wants to do, which you gotta say the man has talent. He's
Yeah.
got a lot of
No, I
talent.
do agree. I do agree.
Um, he does have talent, but it might be another one of those instances of like he makes great movies or movies that have excellent qualities, but they're not ones that I necessarily personally want to consume all the time. Like
Yeah.
they've had of all the movies are like as disturbing as Beau is Afraid. Like he's a very effective, skilled filmmaker that just makes movies that I don't really vibe with right now or unsettle me too much. But then again, if that's what he's doing and that's his goal, then it is effective. So
Yeah.
you can like something and still think it's I
Well,
think good
that's I
quality.
think I think he's talented. And if Ari, if you're watching this, I don't dislike you personally. I don't know anything about you, so it's not a personal thing. It's like if somebody said, "Oh, here's a new whatever movie and a new Ari Aster movie and a new this, what do you want to go see?" I don't know. Do I like Ari Aster? I guess not yet, not yet fully. Although I do
Oh,
like I like Midsummer, um, and I like other things about different movies. So maybe I'm intrigued enough to take a look. No, I don't know.
well, I'll tell you what. I wanted to give an example. Okay, so when I'm thinking about the A24 crew, like these people that are kind of bringing up these you know more it seems like we were in the wave of the new big art film movement where the A24 is basically producing good original movies that aren't just mass consumable products. um Ari Aster is one of those big directors, and I do like him. I like him as a filmmaker, as a director, but I don't know if I necessarily love all his movies. Although the more we've talked about it, the more I've thought about it, I think I really might like Midsummer a lot. So I might have to rewatch that again. Amanda said she might be interested in that one. So if I can get her past the really disturbing first scene, I thought maybe I want to give her a shot. But I did like Midsummer a lot. So I think that if somebody said he was one of the great modern horror filmmakers, I'd be fine with that. But you know who is up in the same current pantheon that I actually like more though, um, is Robert Eggers. Like he
That's funny.
he I
It's funny you
guess
mentioned that. Anyway, I'm gonna cut
because
you off.
he's
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, wait, yeah, good. See, we're on a similar wavelength. He's the same ballpark around the same time. He also has a couple movies that are like this. Like he's a guy who a little different style, but I think he's an excellent horror filmmaker, and I've liked all his movies, and I would want to watch them again. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So like they're disturbing, but they're not so disturbing that like I don't find them entertaining, so they're a little more consumable, I guess, as entertainment. So whether or not that means
yeah.
he's not as good, I don't know. I don't know.
It's funny. It's funny you
Go ahead.
mentioned that because I was thinking about him because for some reason I thought I was thinking until recently that Ari Aster directed The Witch.
Oh,
And that's Eggers. And I like the Lighthouse. I think we did.
yeah.
You see that? Yeah, I like that one.
I love the lighthouse.
Yeah,
Arr,
I really like
watch
that
out for
one.
the evil mermaids.
Yeah. Why'd you spill your beans to me? Yeah,
Why
he's
did
like,
you spill your beans? I didn't spill my beans, Willem Dafoe. What you talking about?
yeah, that's a good one. No, I like him. That guy I like. It's a good guy.
This guy,
Um,
he's okay. You, not so much.
yeah, the witch starts out it's disturbing right at the beginning, and then
The Witch, like The Witch is like like that's my jam. Like it's
the
creepy.
Dawn.
That's I like that Witch John that with the blue thing with the blue John. No, no the the cruise. No, the oh man, yes, that's my jam. I like that's atmospheric where the setting, the music, the costumes, like it's a little more traditional, but it's still very creepy. A little, maybe a little campy in some ways towards the end,
Mhm.
but like it's really atmospheric, but it's more abstract. Like I let the music, the sound design, the costumes, not like if it's a situational thing that's a little closer to home that you're focusing on, maybe admittedly the realism stuffer. So, not saying that Ari Aster's doing anything wrong, but it is harder sometimes to get through those sort of things for me. The Witch, I'm like, it's just a goat, it's fine.
Yeah. No. I like the ending of The Witch. I thought that was all right. I can do that.
Yeah, just dancing.
Um and the lighthouse too. That's interesting. It's kind of that one had some like Lovecraftian type things in there as well. But yeah.
Did you see the Northman?
Yes, I did.
Northman was good. Viking
Yeah.
Hamlet, I like that one. That was good too.
Yeah. I probably got a little too like I think I like was like started I went and got a sword or something and was like swinging it around.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I haven't
Anyway,
seen Nosferatu yet, but we should
no.
watch that when it comes out and talk about it or something.
Yeah, that would be cool. Is that the Yeah. Well, that would be interesting because I've heard some different things about Nosferatu.
Well, my sister saw it and she really liked it. I think well, no, it's funny. She gave me sort of a review where she's like, it was there were some parts that were scary, but I also kind of laughed at the monster when it came out. Like, really? But then she like bought it because she really liked it. So I feel like I don't know. Maybe it's another one where it's like it's kind of cool, but it's also kind of campy. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I would definitely watch it, and maybe we could talk about that. That would be interesting. But I've
Yeah,
heard some
definitely.
mixed things about that one. So you think that's it with Ari Aster? I mean, we talked about.
Well, that's it for now. Yeah, I think we could wrap it up. I'm sorry, man. I threw you the curveball. I couldn't like it's so rare I couldn't get through it. Do you all right, you can put me on this, but you said that you don't necessarily think I have to finish it, but do you do you think I should try to finish it at some point? Like you said there were parts of it that you liked. Like I know you had a hard time sitting with it, but as a film experience, do you think it's worth it, or do you think I could
Mm,
skip it? Because I think I get what he's going for with the other movies. I don't know.
yeah. It, there's there's a very interesting part in the second half of the movie that you haven't seen that
Mhm.
I think is like I would like to see what you think about that. Maybe, um,
Okay.
but there's there's no resolution, and so it's like you like if you're telling a story, I understand like you're being again psychological, you're being surreal, you're
Does
being
life have a true resolution
yeah.
for
There's like a
everyone kind of thing?
character. There's no character art. There's no like.
Growth.
There's
What
not.
does he
Yeah.
learn?
The, everything he learns is like yeah, everything sucks like
It's pretty
you-
much.
it's you were lied to and it's bleak and you're alone and you're right to be afraid. I didn't like that message. He's right to be afraid is the message. Like you should be afraid,
Like
because
there's no hope basically on the
that's
other
it.
end of it, kind of.
I think I said that at the beginning when I wanted to talk to you about it over Christmas break. I think I watched it. and it left me with despair. I don't like that. Like if you leave me creeped out, there's movies that left me creeped out, and I'm like, oh man, I might want to turn the light on when I go to sleep, or I'm gonna, you
Sure.
know, like when I was a little kid, Gremlins did that. When I was a little kid, Gremlins messed me up a little bit.
Oh, Gremlins, classic.
Yeah. And then other movies, this one, it wasn't like it was just like, oh, thank God I have like a telos in my life. Like I have something going on in my life. I'm like, I know where I'm going. Like it's just like, ugh. And I get it's what he's trying to do, but it was like,
Sure.
why did you bring me with this man only to leave him literally upside down? If you ever watch it.
All right. You know what? I'm gonna answer my own question, and my wife's not gonna like it because she's like, "Don't do it if for your mental health." So I'm gonna try something at some point. I'm going to try and finish Beau is Afraid at some point, but I'm not going to watch it like on my big TV. I'm gonna watch it on my computer so I can minimize literally the effect. Because if I'm watching something on my computer and I can like, that might help. So maybe I'll just break it up and I'll do like 5 minute increments, like over like a month or something, just because I'm like, man, I'm telling you that movie's rough, dude.
Yeah. So there, at the point where you let off, I'll just say it again. There's like 2 short films there waiting for you. The one is interesting concept and going on there, and then you're wretched out of that, and then there's the ending where he goes to his mother's house.
Just real quick point before we leave. I kind of wonder if it would have served him better to release the film as 4 short films over like a streaming service over a year, like, for the seasons, like summer with Beau, spring with Beau, fall with Beau, Be Afraid with Beau this summer. You know what I mean? Like I think it sounds to me if he broke it up like that, that might have been better. Like, do it that way. Like 4 interconnected short films, build up to it. Maybe do it that way. I don't think it should be designed for 1 3-hour sitting unless you hate yourself. I don't know how you could do it. Like I know that I was reading some reviews about like one guy praising it, and I'm like, how did you sit through it? Like, like without feeling, I mean, I don't know. It's fine. I'm just not as tough as I used to be. I don't know. Maybe I've never been that tough. I'm just like, man,
Yeah.
what a movie, Brad. What a movie.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Well, I am going to definitely subtitle this episode Joe is Afraid because it was very accurate. I was like, I don't want to watch this. All right. That was our Ari Aster discussion. Please let us know your thoughts about how right or wrong we are about these films. And I'm going to put it on here now to make it official. Okay. Our next podcast, which hopefully we'll do next couple weeks, or hopefully soon, is to talk about the 2002 Count of Monte Cristo. Our friend Nate was excited about it. He wants to jump on that podcast. He said he loved that movie growing up. He's currently reading the novel. So yeah, I think that's the next one review. I wanted to review it for last year for my birthday. We didn't do it, so darn it. It's not even remotely my birthday, but we're gonna do it. And then it'll be your pick after that, Brad. Whatever you want, unless we can get
Okay.
somebody else on.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. That'll be a nice palate
All right.
for
Yes, Knight's Palace Cleanser, and I want to tell you, Brad, do not be afraid to pick some weird artsy movie or even another horror movie. Just um, maybe a shorter one than Beau was Afraid for next time. So if it's horrific, I can maybe get through it in a sitting.
yeah.
Although I will say
Sounds
one
good.
thing, on my channel, Beau is Afraid, still much better done, I think, than Terrifier. I watched Terrifier. That movie is good at practical effects and killing people, but that was it. There was nothing behind it. So I don't know if you've heard of that, the Showcase, but at least Beau is Afraid, I think, artistically has more merit than that. So just getting that one out there because that's a movie that I watched like was much shorter and I couldn't even get through it. It was like, oh, made me sick, literally sick.
No, I don't
So,
want anything to do with that movie.
yeah, that I'm sorry. Like I know some people were into that, but I just was like, no, thank you. That was anyway. So yeah, say goodbye, Brad.
Goodbye, Joe. Goodbye, everyone.
If you want something cool, but you don't know what you're gonna listen to.